Military weapons. Look at them. These are things that are designed based off of things that are meant to protect us and protect democracy and freedom. Why do we have military weapons in the civilian world? A lot of times people say that something that is military is usually just trash. It's the lowest bidder. When in reality, a lot of these things come from truly excellent designs, fantastic manufacturer, or something that is designed to be a very efficient weapon while maintaining its mission. So, right here I have some of the modified versions of military weapons. We have our Sig P226 Legion. We have a 1911. This is a Springfield TRP that I have acquired. One of my favorite 1911s. Here's a Colt Combat Commander, 9mm. This one has been modified and enhanced for modern use. This one's got Springfield, Wilson Combat toys on there. Little knickknacks and thingamajigs to make it more accurate and feel better. Military weapons are so cool. But we also have things where we have modern firearms. This Les Bear right here is the most accurate gun that I own. But it's heavy, and it's probably not nearly as reliable as a Glock. It's designed for one thing, to feed round nose ammunition very accurately. I have a striker fired gun that's been highly modified with a light and slide. This is a low mount optic, tactical light. It's been absolutely modified to be as fast and as heavy in some places and light in other places as possible. Just cool. Here's what I was thinking. I wanted to get something that represented the modern military. And that's why I got this. Yeah, congratulations. It's a Sig M18 based on the Sig P312. Before we do anything, let's go ahead and safety check the gun. Looks good. So, what is this? Well, if everyone can remember the history of the Sig P250, ultimately, you'll know where we're going. Sig wanted to create a modular fire control system that exists deep within the heart of this gun. It is a piece of ladder shaped or ladder framed material that actually ends up being the receiver instead of this grip module. What that allowed Sig to do was change to different grip modules, large size, compact size, different slide lengths without changing the gun. So what we have here is just a modern example of that. One of the things though that I think is really cool is that this gun is in its second or third evolution. The first being the Sig P250. The Sig P250 is maybe considered to be one of the low points of Sig Sauer. But the M18, as we see it here, is considered to be, in at least my opinion, one of the most reliable pistols they've ever made. Go on YouTube and spend any amount of time watching somebody torture test one of these guns. It almost always comes back, repeated time after time, as being one of the most reliable handguns in any one of these tests. Specifically, I'd point you to Garand Thumb, where he tests a Glock, he tests an M18, a 1911, Nighthawk, by the way, Walther PDP, one of these MMPs, and it was actually the MMP and the Sig M18 that actually did some of the best. It might have been an M17, but an M17 and M18 are the same thing, except that M17 has a longer barrel and slide. So, one of the cool things is when you get this gun, it comes with 3 magazines, 2 big boys, and then 1 17-round carry. I believe this is maybe Metgar. I believe it says made in Italy, which is plenty good for me. Sig has never disappointed as far as magazines go. So what I can tell you is that the gun is really balanced, especially when you have the 21 round mag on it. I have a Hollow Sun PID. It's an interesting light, although it's a lot better than this Crimson Trace, something 208, which, you know, is really okay. But, you know, I put this on like my wife's gun or something like that. Anyways, the reason that I like this gun is that it's got several features that I think are great. Now, the military requires a manual safety, but I want to show you a few of the idiosyncrasies that I've learned about this gun that make it kind of fun. In that, it's remarkably simple, but remarkably reliable. Picatinny frame, or rail on the frame. This grip is interchangeable, and there are several fantastic options out there. This trigger, which is a striker trigger, is heavy, but very, very positive. You know, a lot of people think that they enjoy using this, and with the curve and everything, I thought that I wouldn't like it, but over time, it turns out I have. I'm always looking to upgrade. However, you know, it's just something that I might get around to. These sights are glow-in-the-dark sights. I don't know if it's tritium or if it's just a phospholuminescent material, or if it's a luminescent material that gets charged when it's hit with light. We have a nice brown coating at the top, and the coating actually is lightly reflective. I wonder how good it is. It's probably a Cerakote of some kind, or a electroplating or electrocoating. So here in the back, we can just see that there are several covers and little ports here, but there's nothing special. There's a lanyard loop here in the back. The safety is really interesting though, because the safety doesn't lock up the gun. You can still cycle the action, eject rounds, and leave the safety on. You can actually feel it engage before it hits the brake. Something that's interesting though is that you can lock the slide back. You can flip the slide forward. You know, one of the things that was interesting on my USP is that in order to drop the slide, because the slide stop was down here, you had to engage the safety, which I thought was interesting. Here, in order to drop the slide back on an empty magazine, suppose you slam a new mag in, you have to drop the safety, or at least the natural position is to drop the safety. That's just something that's interesting that I found when I was working with this gun. I don't know if it's designed to be that way, but I found it was interesting. I don't know why disengaging the safety while you drop the slide does anything, you know, for the design, or if it's just incidental. Maybe they just wanted it to be as close to the thumb as possible, as well as the safety. Doesn't really matter, you know. But that being said, this takedown lever, all you have to do is pull the slide back, rotate the lever, and then everything rolls forward. What's interesting though is that in this case, I'm actually going to play a clip of it. The very first time that I tried to take the gun down, I had a problem that caused me some issues. All right, here we go. Obviously this is nice and oiled up. I just got a nice coat of CLP in there. Now there is a little part that's down in here that actually comes out from under a little hood here. One of the things I learned that when I put the slide back together, in order to let it roll, was that the magazine will not go in. And I actually just reproduced that for you right now. The magazine is actually blocked by that. One of the things I found is that the magazine will go in when you pull the slide back. So you'll see in that video, I spent 8 minutes trying to figure that out. I don't know if that's a design feature or if that's an idiosyncrasy of just this gun, but I found that was interesting. I don't know if that's something that is part of the design or if it's just part of the lockup feature, but it caused me a little bit of a headache for a short time. So here are some of the groups that I had shot when I was working. I did shoot from number 1 to number 24, I think, eventually. So obviously we are getting okay groups, and I'd like to thank the trigger for that. So let's look over here. Group 2, we're about 2 inches low. Group 3, several inches low. Group 4, we're a little over the place. I'm actually trying to figure out why am I shooting low, low, low. And so I'm getting more spread out. Group 6, I'm now shooting high. Group 7, I'm getting more on the target. Group 8, I think we're, just playing around with stuff. But I'm finding over time, these are all 10-shot groups, by the way. See, group number 10, we're several inches low. Group number 11, we're getting closer to being on target. Group number 12, we're closer to being on target. 13, we're coming up low. So ultimately, and here you see 16, 17, 18. Don't count these. These are from another gun. But I found out that I had to have a modified hold. And that my hold had to be where I was just kissing over the top between the sights, at least with 115 grain. And my last couple of groups looked like these, 19 and 20. So I just found that that's interesting. The gun will group. It's shooting a little tiny bit left, but mostly dead on. But it's important to see, though, that it took me some time. And if you remember my video from when I talked about the TH9 versus the Sig 226 Legion, it was a very similar thing where I actually had to spend some time warming up with the gun. This is my very first time shooting this gun. Now, it's been 100% reliable. I did not have a single issue with anything. Feeding, I spent most of the time with this magazine here in its kind of carry form. I learned that the grip that I used was a grip that's like this versus my 1911 grip, which is modified so that I always can make sure that I have a good grip here. So when I have my 1911, a lot of times my grip is all the way down here or similar, right? Sometimes even if I can get my thumb into the little safety valley that they have in there. So my 1911 grip is different, but I'm still very accurate with it. But when I shoot tactical pistols, like I would shoot with this M&P competitor, I hold the gun way up here. What's interesting, though, and this is actually something that I am going to put on this and continue with my reviews, is that this takedown lever can actually be replaced with a takedown lever that has a contour that you can actually hold a little bit like a gas pedal. So I've ordered what's called a Go Gun gas pedal for this. Next, I've also ordered another little trinket. I'm going to put a Romeo 1 Pro on here because this uses the Delta Point Pro footprint. What's interesting about the M18, though, is that if you take off the plate here, which comes out from underneath, you lose the rear sights. However, if you use the Romeo X Pro or the M17 optic, which is designed to work with this gun specifically, it's a military style weapon, or a red dot, excuse me, or if you use the Romeo 1 Pro, there's a little tiny set of default sights that work in the back that can kind of at least help you get lined up if your red dot ever goes bad. Now, most people will at least tell you that if you lose your rear sights, you're not losing that much. You should focus on the front sight, and that's relatively true. So, but that's just something that we're going to look at. Another thing that I think is kind of cool is that there is a special conversion that people like to call the M1811, which is a grip angle that is more similar to a 1911 pistol. And so if you look at the grip angles, they're not totally identical. If you look here, you can see that one is slightly flatter and then one is slightly tapered back. So there is a grip from, I think it's Brower Customs, that allows you to have a slightly swept back grip. Now, I'm going to potentially get one of those and look at if that changes anything. However, a lot of people have gotten one of those grips and they've been really happy with it. And me, since I'm a little bit of a 1911 nerd, I think that it's great to have something like that. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm not going to keep talking, but I do want to, at least for the purposes of looking at military weapons, this is one of them. And I honestly expect this to be one of the most reliable guns I've ever used. And so I plan on it being that way. You're not going to convince me that it's going to fail me, at least not right now. I have other, weapons that have had lots of failures. All of my 1911s have required breaking in. However, I can tell you that my Sig 226 Legion, my M&P, all of my Glocks, have all been 100% reliable, and this has been the same way. So while 1911s and certain older war weapons are great, they may not be the best thing out there. But I'd like you to make that decision for yourself. Go out and find whatever works best for you. Obey all the laws in your state. Make sure that you're doing the right thing. And I look forward to bringing you more content from this M18 pistol.